Madam President, I rise to discuss helping our service members exposed to toxic burn pits. Let me tell you about U.S. Army Sergeant First Class Heath Robinson. He was a strong, healthy, fit combat medic who served tours in Kosovo and Iraq. When he returned home, however, he began experiencing fatigue. He started bleeding from his ears and nose and completely lost his voice. After consulting multiple doctors, he and his wife were sitting in an exam room waiting for test results when the doctor came in with tears in his eyes. He explained that Sergeant Robinson had an extremely rare form of stage 4 lung cancer and exclaimed, "What have you been exposed to?" Sergeant Robinson thought back to his tour in Iraq. He remembered seeing and smelling smoke from pits the size of football fields at his base near Baghdad. While serving in Iraq, Afghanistan, and beyond, millions of U.S. troops have lived and worked near burn pits. They're basically burning trash heaps that the military has used for decades to dispose of everything from human waste to trash and electronics and jet fuel. And they spew forth many of the same dangerous toxins that were at ground zero after 9/11. The VA estimates that 3.5 million service members were exposed to burn pits around the world, many of them veterans who are now suffering from permanent injuries and illnesses ranging from chronic bronchitis to cancer. But when these veterans seek treatment, they face an often unsurmountable burden of proof. For Sergeant Heath Robinson, the VA denied him compensation and prescription medications because it wasn't proven that burn pits were the cause of his illness. Army Sergeant Robinson died in 2020. He was only 39 years old. I have heard from many veterans, service members, and their families who have also been raising the alarm about burn pits. Gina Cancelino of New York told me about her husband, Joseph, who was a Marine Corps veteran, an NYPD sergeant, and a dad of 2 girls. In 2017, he developed a very rare, very aggressive form of testicular cancer, as well as thyroid cancer. He died in 2019 when he was just 52. Madam President, this is simply unacceptable. Our service members risk their lives to keep us safe, and all they ask for is care in return. But our government has failed them repeatedly. First, it was Agent Orange, then it was the Blue Water Navy vets, today it's burn pits. It's why nearly 2 years ago, I started working with John Stewart, John Field, and a strong coalition of veteran service organizations to craft the Presumptive Benefits for Warfighters Exposed to Burn Pits and Other Toxins Act. This bill forms the centerpiece of the Honoring Our PACT Act, which has now been named in honor of Sergeant Robinson. The bottom line, it would remove the unsurmountable and unreasonable burden of proof for veterans to receive care. No longer would these selfless individuals have to jump through hoops to get the care that they've actually already earned. No longer do they have to spend hours upon hours reaching and researching the very diseases that are killing them. No longer would they have to spend their own money on biopsies to prove that their illnesses are exposure-related and service-related. And no longer would they be forced to suffer or even die like Sergeant Robinson, Sergeant Cancelino, and so many others as our nation and government continue to fail them. Now we have the opportunity to pass this bill here in this chamber at this moment in time. And while we have incredible momentum, we still have to make sure we get 60 votes on final passage. I've been meeting with many of you to drum up the support we need for this critical bill to get it over the finish line. Its passage will represent an enormous victory for service members and veterans across the country. I'm proud of the enormous progress we have made in this effort, and I hope that all of my colleagues will join us in passing the PACT Act, not only for Sergeant Robinson and Cancelino, but for all of the brave men and women who are still suffering and dying from their exposure to burn pits while serving this country so honorably. I yield the floor.